So we're halfway through the decade. It's been a very up and down one so far for the football world. Many would argue that football as an overall sport hit its lowest point in decades in the first few years of the 2020s, especially with COVID hitting and those empty stadiums, so many GOATs declining and retiring, and those few seasons where there was a blatant lack of exciting new talent a few years ago. There's still been a few very dominant teams though, and the most recent of them was 2025 PSG. They were the third treble winners of the decade and were probably one of the most exciting teams Europe has seen in a little while. Like always, people start taking it a bit too far though. I mean, better than 2011 Barca? Seriously? There's no denying that this was a ridiculous team though, despite their recent loss to Chelsea in the Club World Cup final. That begs the question though, where does this PSG team stack up against the previous treble winners of the 2020s? Today, we decide which one deserves the title of Team of the Decade so far. We can start with 2020 Bayern. Now, technically that season started in 2019, but it still counts as part of the 2020s, obviously. All the trophies were won this decade. That Bayern team was one of the scariest ever. Lewandowski was smack in the middle of his prime. So was Muller, to be honest. He wasn't even close to declining yet. Thiago was patrolling the midfield. Gnabry was insane that season, especially in the Champions League. Kimmich had an elite season playing mostly in the midfield, but some right back too. Alphonso Davies broke out this season. Originally, he wasn't starting, but he snatched that starting left-back spot and completely colonized it at 19 years old. They had guys like Coutinho and Perisic coming off the bench. Coman was a key player too, of course. He literally scored the UCL winning goal. It was a very well-built team. Bayern 2020 specialized in the art of momentum. They blitzed teams, often scoring in chunks, and they really displayed the psychology of the game because you literally watched them beat the actual life out of teams. There was games where their opponent wasn't even playing bad, and then out of nowhere, they were just rammed them with 2 or 3 goals back to back to back, and the other team is just walking around shell-shocked for the rest of the match. That Tottenham 7-2 wasn't even that bad in the first half, and it looked like a solid game. A Tottenham comeback wasn't out of the picture. It was only 2-1 at halftime, and they were at home. Then Gnabry just blitzed them out of nowhere, and in the blink of an eye, it was 4-1, and the game suddenly just looked out of reach. Towards the end, when it was 4-2 and the game was basically heading to its conclusion, they just drilled them back to back to back. You could visibly see how Spurs just deflated after each goal. The last one, they looked like they weren't even trying with the defender. If I had to describe 2020 Bayern, I'd say it was like if a rich guy walked down the street and a homeless man asked him for money and he pulled out $1 and put it in his cup and then punched the homeless guy in the face, beat him with a baseball bat, and then took his change cup and left him knocked the fuck out on the street corner. That 8-2 is still probably the most embarrassing ass whooping in the history of the sport, besides the 7-1, of course. Nothing will ever beat that. In your home country, bro, come on now. It's even worse because there was a few good missed chances early in the game that could have swung the momentum in the other direction and given Barca a 2-1 or 3-1 lead. Who knows what would have happened? Unfortunately for them, they fumbled it. Like I said before, 2020 Bayern were momentum demons. A match could have been perfectly 50-50, and then the moment the other team squanders a good chance and is very clearly disappointed and all beat up about it, they pounce and immediately punish you severely, as if they were offended that you didn't take advantage of their mistakes. While the game was tied at 1-1, Suarez fluffed a one-on-one with Neuer, and then Busquets whiffed on a free header, both chances that would have made it 2-1 Barca. A little while after, Messi went on a run into the box but couldn't curl it far enough around Neuer. We could have been looking at a possible 2-goal Barca lead. Slim by 2020 Bayern standards, but a lead nonetheless. Instead, they squandered them all, and then Bayern gave them relentless back shots for 10 minutes straight, and by the 35-minute mark, it was 4-1 before Alba even got the chance to properly shed a tear. The end of the match was just disrespectful. Bringing their own lone player out to participate in the gangbang was just foul. I'm not gonna lie, it's always funny when lone players and former players pull out that apology shit while beating the crap out of their old club, bro. This shit would just make me even madder. You might as well celebrate, bro. Don't nobody want to hear that sorry shit. In the Champions League, they won 10-3 against Tottenham home and away, 9-0 against Red Star home and away, 7-1 against Chelsea over 2 legs, and 8-2 against Barca in 1 game. You can also add some of these home and away league beatdowns to the list. 5-0 against Dortmund, 6-0 against Wolfsburg. Their only blemishes came in the first half of the season when their back line was very shaky and they fired Kovac a couple months into the season and were still adjusting under Flick for a little while. That 5-1 loss to Frankfurt is one of the most random games ever. Once they got settled, it was curtains though. They won, I think, like 29 out of 30 matches in all competitions after December 7th, which was the last game they lost that season. The only game that they didn't win after December 7th was a scoreless draw to second place at Leipzig. Not only were they unbeaten in the Champions League, but they didn't even lose a single game and then went on to win the UEFA Super Cup, DFL Super Cup, and Club World Cup to complete the sextuple. So yeah, quite the season. But 2022-23 Manchester City ain't nothing to look past either. Haaland's first season with everybody questioning if he would be a flop after coming from Germany, and he ended up increasing his scoring rate, 52 goals in all competitions for City. Their midfield was probably their biggest strength that season though, which isn't really surprising for a Pep Guardiola team. KDB, Rodri, Gundogan before he fell off, and John Stones sometimes whenever Pep had him playing that weird DM role that worked perfectly for some reason. The stars pretty much aligned for them this year because quite a few of their key guys were aging, and Pep pretty much squeezed the last elite season he was getting out of a lot of them. Gundogan, Walker, Mahrez, Silva wasn't that old, but he fell off shortly after this season. Stones has been a part-time cripple both seasons after this one. If we're being real, he was still a part-time cripple that season, but 34 appearances is probably the most you're ever going to get out of him, and he was there when it mattered most. City were unbeaten in the Champions League, and even though they lost a couple Premier League games, like always, they tightened up when it mattered most. After their 1-0 loss to Tottenham in early February, they went on a 16-match unbeaten run in the Prem and a 25-match unbeaten run in all competitions. Their only loss for the rest of the season was the last game of the Prem season against Brentford when the league was already secured and they sent their B team out there while resting their starters for the FA Cup and Champions League finals. They had dominant wins over Madrid and Bayern in the UCL knockouts, as well as the you-know-what games in the league, which we do not talk about because they are a banned topic on this channel. You can reference the banned topic list for further information. City had 3 players in the Ballon d'Or top 5 for this season. They also later won the UEFA Super Cup and Club World Cup too, becoming the first English team to win all 5 in 1 year. Funnily enough, if we didn't beat them in the Community Shield, they would have won the Sextuple, which is just disgusting to think about it. Last but not least though, we have our most recent treble winners, PSG. Now, their Champions League season started pretty bad. They lost a few games early and were on the verge of being eliminated, but they tightened up quick. They made a few adjustments, moved Dembele to striker, gave Doué more minutes, signed Kvaratskhelia. By January, they had the most dynamic attack in the world, along with Barca. They had the biggest win in Champions League final history with their 5-0 win over Inter. They didn't lose a single league game until the end of April when the league had already been won for like a month. They had numerous wins over some of the best teams from the best league in the world. They beat Liverpool, Arsenal, City, and Villa on the way to their UCL title. They also pounded both Madrid teams and beat Bayern in the Club World Cup. Losing badly to Chelsea in the final definitely hurt the way people view this season, but it was still an all-timer from PSG. So back to the original question. Which treble winner deserves the title of Team of the Decade? There's definitely at least an argument to be had. I'd give attacking to Bayern, but defense I'd give to Man City. Bayern scored 100 Bundesliga goals in their 34 league games, second most in Bundesliga history behind their 1971 season where they scored 101. They also scored 43 Champions League goals in 11 games, which is the third most in UCL history, and it's important to note that in the 2 Barcelona seasons that are ahead of Bayern on this list, they played 16 games in 14 games. Bayern had the highest goal per game ratio in Champions League history by far. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, City only conceded 5 goals in the entire Champions League season compared to Bayern conceding 8 in 2 less games and PSG conceding 14 in 17 games. Ruben Diaz was arguably the best center back in the world that season, and I don't really think 2020 Bayern or 2025 PSG had a center back in similar conversations. Now, 2025 PSG did have Hakimi and Mendes as their wide defenders, but Hakimi is damn near a better attacker than he is a defender, and despite Mendes locking up quite a few big names this season, that back four of Diaz, Stones, Akanji, and Ake, which was sometimes a back three when Stones went into midfield, was locked down. I didn't forget those Diaz performances in the knockouts against Bayern, or Akanji and Ake too for that matter. They absolutely swallowed Bayern up. They conceded less goals than 2020 Bayern in the league despite playing 4 more games, and conceded less goals than PSG despite playing in the much harder league. In terms of entertainment, it's probably between PSG and Bayern. PSG have a team stacked with technicians from Dembele to Guevara to Doué to Barcola to Ruiz to Neves to Vitinha. Bayern, meanwhile, were almost guaranteed to score at least 3 or 4 damn near every match. You never had to worry about boring-ass scoreless draws when they were on the schedule. Now, on paper, in terms of dominance, PSG is very clearly a step below the other two. They lost numerous Champions League games, 5 total to be exact. Even after they bulked up midway through the season, they still lost twice in the knockouts. Losing to the eventual Prem champions isn't bad, but in a way loss to Aston Villa, Bayern winning every single game is obviously one of the most impressive accomplishments ever, but a bit of context is necessary. A lot of the big clubs they played had pretty mid lineups. Look at Chelsea's starting 11 at Stamford Bridge. Ross Barkley? No Conte, I think he was injured. It got worse in the second leg. Conte came back, but Jorginho was suspended. No Rudiger. Pretty depleted for an already average Chelsea team. They definitely lose regardless, but still. That Barca team shouldn't have lost 8-2 regardless of the squad, but the lineup outside of Messi is genuinely disgusting relative to what Barca was before. Combine that with Ter Stegen playing like a dementia patient, and the 8-2 makes sense. To be fair though, City won the Champions League in a down year for almost every big club. Bayern was buns in 22-23, Madrid didn't have a great season. Bayern and City both didn't really face the big clubs close to their best. Bayern just whooped their ass better. If the two of them were to face off in a two-leg tie, it would be a great matchup, but I lean towards Bayern. City low-key struggled in Champions League away games that season, and they've obviously made up for it because they were unbeatable at the Etihad, but compare that to Bayern, who were generally monsters away from home. The 6-0 against Red Star was away. The 7-2 against Tottenham was away. They blanked Chelsea 3-0 at Stamford Bridge. City didn't get a single win in an away leg in the knockouts. Shit, they only had one away win in the entire tournament. They had scoreless draws against both Dortmund and Copenhagen on the road in the group stages. If the first leg is at the Etihad, I don't see City pulling away from 2020 Bayern. I honestly see a 2-2 draw, even a 2-1 or 3-2 Bayern win. In the return leg, they probably finished them off 3-1 or 3-2. If we were to combine every category to determine which treble team was the best, I'd put 2020 Bayern first, 2023 City second, and 2025 PSG third. Now, if I were to make a combined 11 with these three teams, here's what mine would look like. Of course, it depends on the coach, because a Pep lineup would look different from a Flick one, and a Flick one would look more similar to an Enrique one than a Pep one, but it would still look different, obviously. Let's take a fourth party coach like let's say Klopp, and pick out a combined 11. At keeper, give me Neuer. There's an excellent argument for Donnarumma. He was fantastic in the knockouts, but come on, this is the GOAT we're talking about. Now, left back is tough, very tough. Mendes just had an insane season. He bullied Salah and he contained Saka in the knockouts. He was great going forward. I don't know, though. Those Davies runs were ridiculous, man. That one at Stamford Bridge when he assisted Lewandowski was absurd. The one during the 8-2 against Barca was just as insane. I don't know if I can leave that much explosiveness on the bench. Give me Davies at left back. For my center backs, I want Ruben Diaz and John Stones. There's an argument for Marquinhos, but Diaz was the best in the world at 22-23, and what Stones offers from back there when he's healthy is insane. Center back was probably Bayern's biggest weakness that season, to be honest. I wouldn't put like Boateng or something here. Outright at the back, I want Hakimi. He just had one of the best right back seasons ever, broke multiple attacking fullback records, and he's not a liability at the back defensively anymore. Now, the midfield is where shit start getting spooky. I don't know how I'm going to cut it down to three players, bro. You have to have KDB. That's not a question, in my opinion. He's stamped. I don't think Kimmich or Goretzka are going to make it in here, to be honest. Thiago is debatable, but do I want him here over Rodri? Nah, I don't think so. Do I want Fabian Ruiz over Rodri? Nah, I really don't think so. Now, that last spot, in my opinion, is between Vitinha and Thiago. Are we taking 2025 Vitinha over 2020 Thiago? Thiago was elite at Stamford Bridge and elite in the final. Vitinha won 3 man of the matches in the knockouts, though, although 2 of them came in the playoffs against Brest, and the other one against Arsenal was undeserved in my opinion. It should have been Neves or Donnarumma in the first leg. I'm going to go with Thiago, honestly, just because I think he fits with a midfield of KDB and Rodri better than Vitinha. I'm not mad at anybody putting Vitinha in there, though. It's really not that deep. Now, up front, we got a real dilemma. As crazy as Haaland's season was, there's no chance I don't start Lua here. Sorry, buddy. On the wings, there's a real debate, though. Coman is a solid player, but he's not getting in here. Gnabry definitely gets in on the left, though. Yes, over Kvara. 2019 and 20 Gnabry was generally a monster. 4 goals against Tottenham away, a brace against Chelsea in the round of 16, a brace in the semifinal, 23 goals and 13 assists in all competitions for Bayern. Kvara can hold bench. Grealish isn't even getting in the squad. On the right, I can't lie, Bernardo Silva had some insane performances down the stretch for City. Is it enough to get him in over Doué? Or, as a matter of fact, do we flip Gnabry over to the right wing where he actually played more during the 2019 and 20 season and just put Kvara on the left? I kind of like that idea. Yeah, that's what we're doing. How we feeling, guys? I don't know about y'all, but I'm fucking with it heavy. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. What changes would you make? Thanks for watching, y'all. No video coming real soon. I'm gonna see y'all next time.